Ladies and gentlemen, Binnall of America!
And now, ladies and gentlemen, your host, Tim Binnall.
No commercials, no subscriptions, no network, no rules, and at the end of the day, my friends, no comparison. Welcome back to another edition of BOA The Revival. Very excited about today's show. We're actually taping it like in the middle of the day, which is different from us because our guest is all the way over across the Atlantic in the United Kingdom. So we're making use of the day off here to tape an international episode. It's one I've wanted to do for quite some time, as our guest can tell you. I've been hounding her since probably like the middle of December. I'm like, you got to come on my show and talk about this. Our guest is Emily Louise. Folks in the esoteric probably know of her. She's a fantastic documentary filmmaker and researcher. She's got an awesome YouTube channel, Weird Reads with Emily Louise, where she has a whole bunch of different documentaries about New Age spirituality and UFO milieu and conspiracy theory and all those various fascinating worlds that we've been exploring here on Binnall of America for years. And she may have popped up on people's radars specifically like in the last couple of months because she was a consulting producer on the HBO documentary Love Has Won, which is about the cult known as Love Has Won. Where do I don't have my notes here, but anyway, yeah, that's that's available if you have HBO Max or whatever it's called now. It's on HBO. People were talking about it big time. They're still talking about it, obviously, but over the holidays it was a huge thing. 3-part documentary series. It's fantastic, and as I said, she was a consulting producer on that. And as we'll find out here, Amy Carlson, that's what I was going to say. Love Has Won is this cult, and Amy Carlson's the cult leader. I didn't have the name off the top of my head, but as we'll get into, Emily Louise was tracking all this way before the HBO documentary came along. So she has some tremendous insights into this, and we're going to get all into it tonight. So welcome to the show, Emily Louise. It's a great pleasure to have you on here. As I said, I'm really looking forward to talking to you for a while now.
Thank you for the lovely intro. I didn't want to jump in. I didn't want to interrupt you. It was very good.
Oh, thank you. Now, we always start out with the bio, the background. Who is Emily Louise? How did you get interested in all this stuff? And how did you decide to start creating content and becoming a documentary filmmaker and putting yourself out there and producing this stuff on YouTube and stuff?
I think I've always had an interest in these kind of topics, but it never really I kind of viewed it from the sidelines for years, just like reading books, but never like actively involved in anything. Always been interested in conspiracy theories, strange belief systems, all of that kind of thing that's just like slightly different is always attractive. And then in the pandemic, was jobless, didn't really know in what direction I was going. I kind of had a vague idea of what direction I wanted to go in, but it was kind of like like a turning point where I was like, all right, don't have a job at the moment. What am I going to do? Started making like weird videos on YouTube, really lame ones that aren't on the channel anymore, about like just book reviews, just like random books. Which I've since all privated because they're not on there anymore. And then slowly decided that I didn't want to make videos about books. I wanted to make videos about the things that I was reading in the books, right? The subjects that I was reading about. And then kind of realizing that you don't have to have a whole massive film crew behind you or lots of money or funding to do your own kind of research on things that you're interested in or stories that are unraveling and all that kind of stuff. And that in nowadays it's a lot more accessible for you to just kind of sit in front of a camera and start talking about the things that you're researching and finding an audience. So that's just kind of like how I started doing it. I just started making videos. I had a tiny little like 15-pound microphone that was terrible, and I was filming them all on my phone to begin with.
Oh wow, that's fantastic.
I know.
Well, there's like two kind of parallel timelines here in a sense. As I said to you before we started the conversation, I had watched Love Is One, the HBO documentary, on over the holidays of Thanksgiving. That's kind of when I remembered it because we had mutual friends on Twitter, and I was following you and stuff, and I remembered that you had mentioned it, that you were a producer on it, and I was like, oh shit, that's the thing. Like it all got kind of connected, and I'm like, oh, I gotta get her on the show. But as I was doing the research today, essentially this morning, and digging into your background stuff, then I'm like looking through the YouTube page, and I'm like, oh, Emily made a documentary first before Love Has Won. So when did this? I guess so. I'm trying to untangle these timelines. So when did you first hear about all this crazy cult, Love Is One? When did it first come on your radar? And
again,
go ahead.
In the pandemic. So I was, I first heard about them, I think on TikTok, in like, I want to say end of 2020, beginning of 2021. It was when, things were like really starting to kind of like kick off with them. And that's during the pandemic is when they really kind of, started. They still didn't have much written about them, by the time that I had started researching them. There was, B. Schofield, who writes Guru magazine, had written an article on them, but there really wasn't much else, and definitely no like mainstream attention. So I was I can't pinpoint the exact moment, but I was definitely on TikTok, kind of just like scrolling through, found them, and was kind of searching for more information, and there was nothing. Like there was support groups, there was a Reddit subreddit that had a lot of people who were either ex-followers or people that were just kind of like following online because it was a very, it was an interesting and developing story, people that were researching. There was a Facebook group called Love Has Won Exposed, which was run by some of the family members. And there was also a support group called Rising Above Love Has Won, which was run by somebody whose brother was in the cult for a couple of days and then got abandoned in the desert or ran away into the desert, whatever the story is. There's conflicting stories, all kinds of different stuff going on. So there were those, but there was and there were a couple of jokey commentary videos on YouTube, but nothing that kind of put all of this information together in a concise way. So I want to say I started properly researching them in like the beginning months of 2021. I'm trying to like remember the timeline. It was definitely 2021. And then as I was working on the YouTube documentary that I did, Amy died. So like unbeknownst to me, while I was writing it and filming it and editing it, she had died in that time period. So if you go back and watch it now, I think I put in like a bit at the beginning that's like, I wrote this before she died, and I didn't even know whether I wanted to release it because I didn't want it to be disrespectful, but I thought, anyway. So I put that out, I think at the beginning of May, because she died in April 2021. And I put my documentary out at the beginning of May, which was like the first, like concise, I would say, like, how do I phrase it? Like putting everything in one place.
Comprehensive look at this cult.
Yeah, exactly. And then from that documentary that I made was I was contacted by the HBO documentary director, Hannah, through my documentary. So she watched it on YouTube and obviously, was interested in the story, wanted to direct this documentary about Love Has Won. And contacted me because I was I'd brain rotted myself so much that I knew too much about it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's so much going on with this cult. It's fascinating, and I think that's why people have really taken to the story. Because it's such an of our time. It's so contemporaneous. You hear all these stories of like Jonestown, these older cults. and you wonder what the hell the deal was. But this is super recent, which is terrifying in and of itself. That these things exist, right now. And the amazing part is that in the Love Is One HBO documentary, it is, and as you say, part of your role was to sort of collate or produce this archival footage from almost 3,000 live streams. So I guess I'm trying to think of how to bring people up to speed. So I'll sort of give a brief thumbnail to take the load off you a little bit. So this Love Is One, this cult. So this Amy Carlson seems like a fairly normal person. She stumbles upon, yes. I said seems like. So she was working at McDonald's. She was a manager at McDonald's. And I'm giving a super thumbnail here. So she stumbles upon sort of this new agey world of the internet.
She first got into. I can just jump in with what I know, I guess. She first. Well, this is according to one of her exes, who I wouldn't say is a particularly reliable source because he's got his own religious affiliations, which is fine, but it may somewhat cloud his judgment sometimes. And he's very vocal on like Reddit forums and stuff. But his claim is that she, there were two things that really got her into New Age spirituality. One of them was the film What Dreams May Come, which stars Robin Williams, who is a big factor in Love Has Won. And it's based on the book What Dreams May Come, which I haven't read, but apparently there's a lot of kind of theosophical and New Age themes and threads that run through that book that are more pronounced in the book than the film. So I need to put that on my to-read list. And she was also really heavily influenced by the Celestine Prophecy, and the Celestine Prophecy again made into a movie that was quite popular amongst like New Age people. And she was also very much into like Oprah's book club kind of self-help spirituality, the things that kind of really that draw people in to begin with. So you're looking at things like Rhonda Byrne, The Secret, people like Wayne Dyer, who was another big influence on Amy, and she also took a lot of his teachings and put it into her own theology, if you want to call it a theology. She started off as a McDonald's manager and got involved in the New Age, and she began kind of going online, looking for like-minded people. This is, you're talking about mid 2000s, so it's still very like early days of the internet. Social media wasn't, it's not Facebook or Twitter. It was things like lightworkers.org that she'd go on and talk to people on message boards, and that is where she met Amrith, who is featured in the documentary. It's called Amrith White Eagle. That's obviously not his birth name. And they met online and had a relationship online. And he, again, there's so much in this story that is like, I can just say what I know, but I can't confirm so much of it to be 100% fact, right? And so much of it is built on like, oh, X person said X. But the overall consensus, and based on what I've seen, he is the one that at the time he was calling himself Father God, and talking a lot about, Father God and the mother coming together, and that Amy was this mother God. So she eventually ends up leaving her family. She's still got 3 children, but obviously she's not alive anymore. So she left her 3 children and went to Amrith, who was living in, I believe at the time it was Colorado, but they moved a lot between like Colorado and Mount Shasta. Obviously, Mount Shasta itself is a big like New Age haven. So is Crestone, Colorado. These are places that attract a lot of people that are interested in New Age spirituality. And in Colorado, there's again like so many different rumors and things that never made it into both the documentary that I made and the HBO documentary. But there was a lot of like, sometimes it's kind of portrayed that Amy was very peace and love at the beginning, and that she didn't really have all of these issues with drugs and alcohol, which she had like later into her life. That isn't really true. She, even before she left to join like Amrith in this kind of new age romance, she was a very big drinker. And, ex-partners of hers have said, she could drink anyone under the table. She would just pound alcohol. So she was more likely than not an alcoholic before she was ever involved in any kind of new age movement. But then when she's with Amrith in Crestone and they kind of come together, there were a lot of reports, because I believe they were running a hotel around that time when they first got together. Again, so there's so many of these pedantic little details that obviously when you're making a 3-part TV documentary, you can't include, because they're only interesting to losers like me that want to track like every single detail. But they were running a hotel, and there was loads of reports of like Amy would always be drunk and the place was filthy, and they were getting kicked out of a lot of places, and it was just a whole mess. There was this place, apparently she went and lived in the woods for a while, and all of this kind of stuff. Like, so much drama. So yeah, that's a very like that's kind of like the beginning of it. She, in that time, they were kind of cultivating this online presence. So I think that Amrith originally had a website of his own. He was calling himself the Galactic Free Press, where they basically just take like a hodgepodge of like new age posts from around the internet and kind of put it up as their own, like a compilation of like new age stuff. And Amy started to do like tiny chats. Do you remember Tiny Chat from like way back in the day? Like, again, we're talking like mid-noughties. Yeah. It was kind of like sort of like group video chat, right? So you'd set up your little chat room, and then you'd send people. Now you do stuff like that via Zoom, and it would all be private. But back then you could do it like a tiny chat thing. You'd have hundreds of people join, and you'd all be chatting together. And so she'd publicize like a lot of these tiny chats and get people to join them. And she, again, like, this is just me hypothesizing and just, kind of like going off of what I know. And, it may not be 100% correct, but it does appear to be that Amrith was the one that told her she was Mother God and that he was Father God, although he may like to portray that he was, that he meant that we're all God. We're all God together, and that, anyone can call themselves Mother and Father God, and it has nothing to do with being an actual leader. I don't know how true that is. To me, it comes off as a little bit kind of like, oh God, I was involved in the creation of a monster, and I don't want to have anything to do with it.
Yeah, because when you watch the HBO documentary, he seems kind of like he's like, then she went off and did all that shit. Like, I don't know what.
Yeah, I wasn't involved in this.
She just took off.
Yeah. There's a lot of like things that people like to say about him. There's a lot of allegations that were made about him that I won't get into, because again, they're just allegations. There's not really any proof, but I think that he was more involved in it than he likes to
maybe
make out.
Seeds. Now I have a question. Sort of, you're doing a great. Thank you.
Sorry,
for
I'm really rambling.
No. You took it right off of my shoulders. I appreciate it, because I was just going to do a really haphazard sort of recap. So this is perfect. So where do you think? And this is all speculation, because like she isn't around to tell us, and she wouldn't if she was. But like, where do you think? Because over the course of this thing, she invents, as you said, Robin Williams. That's like, I think everyone kind of gets tripped up on that because it's just so absurd.
Yeah.
But like, she's like, oh, Robin Williams is mixed up in this, and all these people are like our spiritual crew. Do you think she just kind of like made this kind of up out of thin air, kind of created her own theology of stuff, and kind of what people really gravitate to? She's like, all right, that's working. That's kind of like, people really dig this thing about Robin Williams, so I'm going to keep it going.
I think that denotes a level of calculating that I'm not sure she had the ability to do.
So these were almost just more delusions then.
That's my take on it. My take. So other people might have their own take, and see Amy as completely cold and calculating, and that she made all of this up for money and whatever. And there may be some truth to that, but I genuinely think that there is and again, I'm not here to diagnose anyone, but there are obviously a lot of psychiatric issues here. Hearing voices, having delusions. I think that when she spoke about Robin Williams, and again, to contextualize Robin Williams, and I know, like you said, everybody kind of gets hung up on it. They're like, what on earth, Robin Williams? But in The Love Has One World, they really just view him the same way that you would view like an ascended master, right?
Right.
That you would view somebody like, he's like a kind of Jesus figure. You know, he's a spiritual guide for them. And there's really no difference between that and, you know, other cults that channel Ashtar or channel Cryon or stuff like that. It's just that he's a celebrity. And I pointed this out on Twitter as well. Like, channeling of Robin Williams is not like a rare thing in the New Age world. There's a very weird like connection onto Robin Williams and a lot of other like dead celebrities as well. A lot of people are always trying to like channel dead celebrities. But Robin Williams specifically is like, if you just go on YouTube and type in channeling Robin Williams, like you will be so shocked how many people come up. It's weird. Odd. But that's the whole, and again, it leads into like channeling itself as like a New Age practice. You know, people always like trying to contact their spirit guides. That is who Robin Williams is for them. And people like to, you know, one of the great bits of the documentary is where one of the followers, Hope, holds up the it's like an A4 photoshopped image of Mother God, and she's surrounded by her galactic A team with all the celebrities. Again, like it is very similar to like I was going to say like an Elizabeth Clare Prophet and her Ascended Masters, but obviously Elizabeth Clare Prophet was probably a lot more calculating than Amy Carlson. But it's a similar type deal is what I'm trying to say.
Similar setup.
These are kind of like the angels that are guiding their higher wisdom. They've come to join Mother God's team. They all have an assigned role.
Right.
Yeah, that's the Robin Williams. I think I've forgotten the question because I keep going on rambles.
We're just chatting. It's not don't worry about it. So we'll keep the narrative going here on this cult, and then we'll kind of dig more into it. So she's mixed up with Amherst. She leaves him behind. She goes to become the leader, the soul, the mother god. And from I'm sort of basing this on the HBO documentary. So then one of the interesting characters that she gets mixed up with at this point is this Michael guy who becomes the money guy. He's
Miguel Lamboy is his name. Michael.
Okay.
Michael is because he's Archangel Michael.
All right, yeah, that was. I have that scribbled out in my notes. I have like two names here. I'm like, I don't know what this guy's name is. So he's like, in my mind, he's probably one of the more. We talk about calculating. He's one of the more controversial figures in this story because it's like this guy, all the businesses are in his name. Everything is in his name. It's very shady that he's the businessman of the organization. He comes in and kind of like is like, okay, you're this celestial being. You're God on earth. Let's form an LLC. Let's get this thing. Or actually, it's a charitable organization, right? So it becomes a group at that point, right?
Yeah, and they were definitely a group beforehand. And again, like this is where I have a kind of debate with myself as to again what I think about it, because you can have these kind of like. These debates and conversations about who was more calculated, who knew what, who was only there because they knew it was a big grift, who actually believed. At the end of the day, the only people that know are them. From his actions, I do genuinely believe that he thinks that Amy cured his cancer because he had cancer. I believe it was stage 4 cancer, and he attributed Amy of healing him from cancer. And I think in his mind, everything that he was doing was probably for the cause, right? And there may have been reasons why Amy wanted everything in his name. You know, things that I'm not going to speculate about.
Right.
But he was involved when she was with Amaranth. And he was involved in his...
He almost strikes me in a sense like watching it all unfold in a sense, he almost strikes me as sort of like the adult in the room. Or who's like,
well, and he's got a
people are sending us a shitload of money. We need to actually have a bank account, guys.
Yeah.
Like, we need to pay property taxes. Like, we have to do, like, adult shit if we're going to keep this party going.
He lived in New York. He worked for the UN, supposedly. Some people like to say that he didn't work for the UN and his CV is fake. It's debatable, but I don't know whether or not that was a lie. He appears to have been like relatively successful, like I don't know in what terms you want to measure success, but just like a kind of regular New York guy. And he was also kind of very much, this is me speculating. Mm-hmm. When I listen to him talk, and there are, some, there aren't any more. There used to be tons of stuff of him online, but they deleted, like every video on their YouTube channel. He comes across to me as somebody that probably is well versed in something like neuro-linguistic programming. He's like very kind of convincing when you talk to him, very softly spoken. It's almost like he's I don't know how to phrase it, like
mesmerizing, kind of.
Yeah, kind of. Like you sit in front of him and he'd tell you a story, and you kind of you kind of end up. But I weirdly want to compare him to like a what I would imagine Rick Doty was like in the 80s, when like the very early 80s when he started doing all the disinformation, because people talk about how he was very charismatic and very believable, and you look at the person now and you're like, are you kidding me? But like, right. So he kind of comes across like that. So he came from New York, joined, left with Amy. There was this whole idea of in this whole story that Amy was put in a closet by Amaranth, and that Amaranth was doing all these awful things, and that's why they left. And they left for Mount Shasta. And they got a house in Mount Shasta, and that's where things kind of started to grow much more cult-like in the sense of like actively recruiting people. So that's kind of
that's the impression I get. Yeah, then people start to come there and live there, and it becomes like a live-in thing.
Yeah. There's a lot.
First, like, she was just sort of like an online guru. Yeah. And then people are like, we're going to come and fucking live with you. Yeah. And then it becomes a commune almost, a cult.
Yes.
Yes. It becomes like a commune with her at the center of it.
Exactly. So that the big kind of recruitment push, I would say, happened around where you get most of the members that joined is around 2017, 2018. That's where like a lot of the people that you see in the documentary joined, but other people that are in the documentary, people like Mary, were there from like the very beginning. Like she was there like way back with Amaranth. And there were so many father gods in that time period that it's really difficult to keep track of them all. So there's obviously Andrew, who was in the documentary, who talks about, how he left and stuff. But after he left, there was another couple of father gods that were down in Florida. So Amy moved to Florida for a very short while. I think she lived in Clearwater, of all places, which is like Scientology place. And she was very much attracted to Disneyland. Disneyland was a big part of Amy's story. That's not really made it into the documentary, but Amy kind of was really almost like living out a childhood dream in a sense. She would dress up as Belle. There's like videos of her having like marriage ceremony with one of the many father gods, some of which I don't even know the names of. Down in Florida, there was talk of she'd have to go to Florida to open different portals and stuff. And she'd be, all this kind of stuff, get mother to Disneyland for her joy. Because everything is about, again, with Love Has Won, as the time kind of progressed, the basic idea was that Amy is a representation of the earth. She is Mother God. She is the earth. She is Gaia. And because us as human beings are destroying the earth, therefore we're destroying Mother's body, right? Humanity aren't getting it. We're not ascending with Amy. We're working against her, Mother God, and she is taking on all of our pain and trauma and everything. So everything that we're doing to the planet would somehow have an effect on Amy's body, to the point where they would film like lesions that weren't healing on her body, because obviously by a certain point her body was in a very serious state of physical decline because of anorexia, drug use, colloidal silver. They would take videos of her body and like these sores that she had, and they would say they were like volcanic eruptions on her body. And that her body is representative of the earth itself. So if we're killing the earth, then we are ultimately killing and harming Mother God, because she is Gaia. So I've gone off on.
No, we're good. Don't worry about it. So I'm kind of tracing this back through like the HBO series in a sense, and it's like there's certainly like a party atmosphere when they all kind of show up, when the commune first kind of gets going. It's like, shit, I kind of want to. I bet you that would be an awesome time that night, like when they're all kind of all just together. They're all finally showed up and everything.
Yeah.
And so over time, they kind of turn this into like a storefront kind of situation where they're selling a bunch of shit. They're selling all kinds of like just everything they could sell, from merchandise to all kinds of healing products and stuff. Also, it's worth pointing out that she's doing these, as you mentioned in your documentary, it's sort of like a psychic McAfee or whatever. Like she's like going in
Etheric Surgery.
The Etheric Surgeries.
That was their massive, not only for money, but also recruiting tool. So that's how they kind of got everybody there. So she was doing that from the very early days. She'd do it in these tiny chat rooms that I was talking about, where she would claim to basically perform a psychic surgery on you on your etheric body. Obviously not your physical body, and that she would go inside you and she'd kind of, fiddle about a little bit, fix some bits up, and then you'd be good to go, right? But what it was is a recruiting tactic. Once you had paid I think it was like $66. Once you paid your $66, they then give you like a handbook from your etheric surgery, and you'd be in contact with the people constantly, people checking in with you. So it very much was that kind of like love bombing, like come in, join us kind of deal.
And for the unfortunate people who like maybe it was placebo effect, maybe it was luck or whatever, maybe they're like, oh, that's weird, my back doesn't hurt anymore, and then it's like,
and I've got no doubt that it worked for people, no doubt at all. And again, I don't doubt the belief that a lot of these people have, and I don't think that here's the thing, their belief that Amy is God is not the issue with Love Has Won, and I don't really think has ever been the issue. If you're this is where it gets into the grey territory, right? Because the people that were drawn to Amy, not all of them, but the majority of them, you can trace back probably the moment that their life started to go in a certain way that would lead them to someone like Amy. And it doesn't all look the same. It's not all kind of like your textbook, I've got no money, therefore I need to do something because this person's telling me I'm going to be prosperous, and therefore I need to follow this person, or I've had a horrendous trauma that's happened to me and therefore I'm going to end up following this person. Like for some people, it was as simple as like a breakup that sent them spiraling off in one direction and, eventually led them to Amy. It's not like a one size fits all scenario. So I've got a lot of maybe misplaced empathy for a lot of the people that believe and still do believe. Like most of them,
I can totally understand.
every single person in the HBO documentary is still a believer.
Yeah.
My issue with it is obviously when it turns into a high control group, people can be abused and were abused on a pretty much daily basis. Even if the people inside it can't see that is abuse, some of the things they live streamed were utterly horrific.
Right.
And also the ideology of it. We're talking hardcore fascism. We're talking Holocaust denial. We're talking one of the father gods who's featured in the documentary, who then becomes father of the multiverse, John. They call him FM. And they also call him Larry because he's also Hilarion, who's again another like ascended master, goes back to Blavatsky, theosophy. But he's also the reincarnation of Hitler. And apparently Hitler was working for the light and was a really good guy. And he only did, again, I'll tell you what they believe.
You're recounting this. So don't take this out of context.
Yeah, exactly. But their belief, and they said this on their live streams, this comes from their mouth, is that the concentration camps were set up because the Nazis wanted to teach Jewish people how to work because the Jewish people were lazy and just wanted money.
Jesus.
Yeah. So that's where it goes. The issue is not with you're following this woman who's preaching lovely enlightenment. That's not the issue. You know, if you want to just follow any sort of new age belief, that's fine. The problem is the fascism that is baked into it.
Yeah.
And again, like their beliefs crossed over with everything. I mean, anything you can imagine, because they were so plugged into the internet, right? So they were basically just a hodgepodge of new age, conspiracy theories, UFOs, pretty much everything you can think of was kind of worked into their theology.
Right. So they're cruising along as this, and I guess before we get into Jason Castillo, because that's like when the whole thing takes a really dark turn, even darker, I guess you could say. It's worth noting, and this kind of serves as the backbone of the whole HBO thing and how you were the consulting producer. I'm sure you advised and talked endlessly to these folks about what you know about this when they were like, tell us everything. You were probably like, all right, sit down, we're going to be here a while. But the crazy part, and I think that what blows a lot of people away from the HBO special, and this is thanks to you for digging this all up and I guess saving it or whatever, it's like they filmed everything. Like filmed so much stuff. It's insane. And as I said, it's very much contemporaneous. It's very much of our time. It's like what you would imagine these cults, like you always kind of heard of these old timey cults. You're like, I wonder what it was like day to day. It's like, well, these people
they showed it
everything. Yeah,
it's nuts. They had about just under 3,000 videos on their YouTube channel. So when I was working on making my documentary, I maybe watched about half of them. But working on the HBO documentary, that was pretty much my main role. Like on a full-time basis, was watching those videos and picking out bits. And so the very good decision was made by Hannah, the director, to kind of save everything on their YouTube channel because they eventually ended up deleting it. So through her, we managed to get like every live stream downloaded, and even some of the ones that they'd previously deleted. And it was just like having to watch, like it's interesting, absolutely, to watch it. It definitely takes a toll on your mental health, because these live streams, I mean, they were streaming for 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the evening, and some of the streams in the evening would go on maybe 6 hours, and they would turn into group karaoke sessions and then also group abuse sessions. When I say abuse, I mean they would stand up a cult member, most usually John, who's father of the multiverse, and they would berate him for about 2 hours. It was and a lot of this stuff eventually didn't make its way into the documentary, which I understand for like time and stuff, and you can only include so much, but there is a lot of abuse that was documented by them that I don't think enough people have seen, because there's a lot of focus on like the very infamous video that Amy filmed herself of screaming, "I want chicken parmesan," or "You got me meatballs, I don't want me." That's like, for me, that is like a drop in the ocean of some of the things
right
that I have seen from them.
Yeah, that's kind of the off-putting part in a sense. It's a lot of it's off-putting, obviously, but it's like she carries herself off as this charismatic love and light thing, and because they film so much, it's like she's she's just fucking mean, and it's like really bizarre.
But for them though, that's called the dragon energy. That's what they would say. They would say, "Mum's dragon's coming out." So that was part of it. And again, like, I can kind of understand the thought process here, because if you look at, like Christianity, for instance, you sometimes have the idea of like a vengeful God. God is wrathful. God can be mean, and that's kind of what was coming through Amy, is this real meanness. And there's one great live stream where a guy comes, and he did later join. His name's Ricky, and he comes and it's hilarious because you can see, because they're just walking around the house filming, you can see him come through the front door, and they're like, "Oh, we're going to introduce you to Mother God. We're going to introduce you." He comes and he's like, "They're telling me you're God. Like, you're like, prove to me that you're God." And she just goes off at him, but it's like an hour and a half of like her trying to convince him that she's God, and she'll like yell and stuff, and sometimes she'll be quite coherent, but like there's so much that was filmed that they put out. It's like an astounding amount, and go ahead. Things that didn't make it in that I I saw some comments that people, because I kind of look at what people are saying about it and stuff, and there are comments that I got on my YouTube video after the documentary had come out, where people would say things like, "Why didn't Amy's parents intervene? Why didn't her mom go and try and get her back? Why didn't her sisters go?" There were live streams where the cult would be calling Amy's mom on the live stream to like yell at her, or like yell at her mom. Like they were genuinely like scared, and with good reason. I think, like, I don't necessarily think that they would have been harmed, but like there were streams that I watched where the cult followers would just call Amy's mom over and over again, and then there's tons of streams where they would call her out by name, call her all the names under the sun, like horrific abuse, yelling, screaming. Just awful.
Wild.
Yeah.
So this guy, where do I have the name here? Jason Castillo. He's the final father god figure. He comes onto the scene. He's got a criminal background. He's kind of a shady character.
Yeah.
And so then that thing that he that's when things really start going downhill. In the story, in a sense, not like it already wasn't kind of going downhill. This is when the
definitely going downhill, but
accelerates.
I would say it's fair to say he accelerated it quite a lot, and he was very much like that from the beginning. Even in the first couple of months of him being there, I think before. I'm fairly certain this was before he had his swearing in ceremony as Father God, and I can't remember actually whether or not this is like said in the documentary, but all of the father gods are also Lucifer. I can't remember if that was actually said in the documentary.
I don't think I remember that.
So essentially, like, Mother God is the lightest of the light, right? She's like the bringer of the light. The Father God energy is Luciferian energy. So the whole idea is that while Mother God was creating the light, Father God had to go and like harvest the darkness or something like that for like 5,000 years or like 500,000 years, and now they're finally back together again.
Oh yeah, so you mentioned this in your documentary. Yeah.
Okay. So like it's this big whole kind of like crazy love story in a sense, like a very fucked up love story. So like it's a love story no matter what, for them. And for a couple of, raging alcoholics and drug addicts, that can It was obviously quite inspiring for them. But Jason kind of comes onto the scene in 2018. And even before he's sworn in as Father God, he has a lot of issues with the group. So there was like, I'm trying to remember like the specifics, and it's on like a live stream, but again, these are all deleted now. But he was essentially threatening to behead people within the group, and they had to like tase him, but he wouldn't go down. So like he would like, he was like resisting the tasing. Like, I mean, we're talking like crazy shit. And I think the person that he beheaded, I say the person, I think it was a child that he threatened. Like, it was just awful stuff. Abusive to followers, but obviously, and then they kind of, Amy would do this thing with him where she would kind of send him away, go away, like, you know, she's in control. But then he would just find his way back. And whenever he found his way back, that was through like a divine plan, right? So like he'd throw, and it's mentioned a bit in the doc, because he traveled to find them, but he didn't know where they were, but he ended up there anyway, right? These are like signs, synchronicities that they're on the right path. The universe is guiding them. So Father God, the universe brought Father God back, therefore he must be the real Father God. All of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. He brought like a dark, like a really dark, tyrannical sort of edge, and
but
almost
that's what he was supposed to do, because he's Lucifer. So when you understand
so encouraged in a way,
exactly. When you understand that, that's like trying to get yourself in the mentality of what these people believe is like that behavior is what Lucifer would do, right? Like that just
so it's
that
like
just
permissible
proves.
in their eyes. Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting, too, in a psychological sort of sense, like almost like a Stanford prison experiment kind of way, where it's like, okay, what if we take this dude with dark tendencies and we put him in charge of a cult, or give him the power of, like, you know, second in command of the cult, and he just, you can tell he kind of relishes in the ability to be that Luciferian energy. It's like, oh, shit, this is...
Amy was definitely,
spooky.
I think... I feel like Amy was definitely still in control. She was still the one that was running the ship, right? Yeah. So again, like there's, I don't know how much I agree with the narrative that like Amy lost control of her creation and ultimately fell victim to it. I mean, yes, there's enough evidence there that you can definitely strongly make that argument. I don't think that's the only argument that could be made, though. She definitely believed in a lot of this stuff, and even though Jason did have like this negative energy and definitely contributed to the downfall of both, you know, Love Has Won, but also Amy Carlson herself, I do think that she would not be in a good state, but I think she would most likely be alive today if it wasn't for Jason, because you're talking about somebody that's got his own addiction issues. And, you know, a lot of meth involvement, allegedly. It was still her creation, right? She was still Mother God. They didn't worship him, right?
Right, exactly.
They would say that they never worshipped anyone. And Amy would say, I don't want followers. I don't want people to worship me. But I can't really think of another word for it. For what it was.
Yeah.
You know?
Because if she had been like, all right, everybody, this guy's got to go or whatever, then they would follow her. They wouldn't follow him. Yeah.
Exactly. And you see that in what's happened afterwards. She's died. He's got two people that are following him, basically, which is Luna, who was not involved in she was involved, but she didn't make it into the HBO documentary, and John, Father of the Multiverse, who's still following Jason. And I think a lot of that has to do with abuse between them, and you know, a shared grief of Amy's passing, because they were both Amy's partners. They were both partners. They were in a throuple, basically. So there's a lot of grief tied in there. But nobody else has followed Jason, right? So a lot of people would think, okay, well, Amy's dead. Surely they should follow Jason afterwards. Go after him because he's the second in command, right? But he was never really in command. It was it was all Amy centric.
So within the time frame of this. So he comes aboard. At some point along the way, her health starts to fail, as you said earlier, through alcohol abuse, colloidal silver, which is the crazy part, too. This is like COVID-19 comes up, and they're kind of like, which is just, with unstable people, COVID-19 was like the worst fucking thing that could have happened.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I had just sort of started following the flat Earth community, and they went fucking nuts too. So it was like, all right, if you're
around this time, you've got Q come up as well.
Exactly, right,
which was
right.
a
So
massive
they get mixed up with
this.
the Q stuff too. Yeah.
They took on a lot of it. They were massive, really big fans of Trump. Trump was when Amy was in a past life Queen of Lemuria. Donald Trump was her dad. So he's like he's been like the reincarnation. So yeah, stuff like that, you know, like QAnon, which I won't get into, but I think there's a lot of interesting things that you could get into with QAnon, you know, like the origins of it, the weaponization of it, very useful for some people. Makes you wonder where exactly it came from. But that kind of stuff all got looped in with their narrative. They mentioned it constantly. And some people say, oh, well, they only mentioned these kind of things as a recruiting device. They didn't really believe in anything, and they put it all together just to recruit more people. I don't think that's true. I think that they absolutely believed in it. Because by the time all the Q stuff started coming in, it was just kind of, the Q stuff is just a rehashing of older, like, conspiracy stuff. And they were really into everything.
Yeah. It's the QAnon stuff, it's a repurposing of sort of all of the old conspiracy theories, really. There's nothing really particularly fresh about it. So her health is failing. Well, you mentioned, like, you don't think necessarily that she lost control of the situation, but at some point it does seem like she was super sick, and they're like, look, we're not taking her to the fucking hospital because, you know, it's the non-believers or whatever.
The cabal will get her. Yeah. The cabal wanted her body. They want to kill Mother God. Right. So therefore, if we go into the 3D hospitals are run by the cabal, right? And again, it's this rejection of 3D medicine, anything to do with modern medicine. Because in those worlds, modern medicine makes you sick, right? And there are, I don't want to sound like, I don't think this is a conspiracy theorist to say, but I do think they've got valid points about, you know, like involvement of capitalism in medicine, 100%. The profiting that people do on the backs of sick people, 100%. And that's like that's a massive part of this that never really gets addressed, right? Because everybody always wants to go like, oh, these horrible conspiracy theorists spreading stuff, but it's like nobody ever wants to address the reasons why people get to the point that they reject modern medicine, right? Which I'm 100% like, I'm fully for modern medicine, right? I'm not like but I also understand how these people get to that point.
Exactly, yeah.
Because you see these people exploiting others, and you see massive pharmaceutical companies exploiting people, and if you don't have if you can't process that in a certain way, it can lead you down some really dark paths where other people can take advantage of your genuine and very well reasoned criticism of like the pharmaceutical industry, right? It can be exploited by a lot of bad actors, which again is what I think happens here. Like they just stumble into this web of conspiracy stuff, and there's really like no way of them getting out of it. So in regards to the health stuff, because obviously she's a massive drinker.
Right.
And again, I can't remember exactly what the autopsy claimed as the cause of death. A lot of it was to do with anorexia. She had a lot of food issues throughout her life. And obviously as she's drinking more, she's not eating. And as she becomes skinnier, that's something to be lauded, right? That's something that's really positive thing. And it's said as much in the cult that Amy not eating food is then kind of translated into, she's in 5D, therefore in 5D you don't need as much food.
Right, yeah.
We're all transitioning out of needing as much food. You know, we don't need to eat as much, all of that kind of stuff.
Right.
So she's drinking, and I mean, when she's drinking, and they do mention it in the documentary as well, we're talking in a day, she'd drink like 10 beers lots of vodka, tequila. She was on stuff like Rick Simpson oil, which is like potent THC, smoking weed. There's been meth allegations. They were doing mushroom trips. I mean, this is a fucking cocktail of drugs that will just I mean, I can't even imagine. But she's done so much that at some point she becomes like almost immune to it in a sense. She's got to keep going and going and going and going and going.
Yeah. She built the tolerance almost,
Yeah. At some point, I want to say this happens, again, I can't remember the exact date, but I want to say at some point around 2019, 2020, she claims to not be able to walk anymore. I think this was around 2019. And you can point to different things that may have caused that. Probably was alcohol related, something to do with nerves. Some people claim that she could still walk and she just wanted to be carried around, but she was clearly not well. She clearly was, in a bad state. So she'd be like carried on and off live streams, put down in the chair, then picked up and off the chair. And you just started to see, again, in this time, after like 2019, I'd say even after 2018, she rarely appeared on camera anymore. And it wasn't because she was looking bad. She was just kind of, the cult had kind of taken over at that point. She had, this group of followers. They were the ones that were doing the live stream. They were spreading the message of Mother God. So for almost a decade, it had been her in front of a camera, very ethereal sounding, spreading a message. But then she's got a group of people who can proselytize for her. So she no longer has to do it. So she stopped appearing on those live streams around 2018. And she would make like very rare appearances. Sometimes she'd call in. Most of the time she'd be belligerently drunk. And they had like a Skype group, which was all the people that were actually in Love Has Won, like as members. They'd had their etheric surgery. They were part of the group now. That's where they would kind of talk. And there was some infiltration of that from researchers at the time who had kind of got into that group. And they posted up pictures of Amy. End of, I want to say like mid 2020 towards the end of 2021. So in mid 2020, I'm pretty certain that's when she's in Hawaii. I'm trying to remember all these dates off the top of my head. She's in Hawaii. She was on Dr. Phil. She ain't looking good. Like she's looking quite blue. And she did a couple of live streams when she was in Hawaii on her phone. One of them, she does a tequila shot. She immediately throws up. Her face is blue. I mean, it's just awful. And there were a few photographs that were circulated in this Skype group that I was talking about. And these photographs were really bad. I mean, she was, and these were some of the ones that we included in the documentary. And you can see that she's blue, that she's frail, that she is dying.
She's dying.
And it's like, it's absolutely insane. And then,
I think that's part of the captivating part of the story, in a sense, is like if you watch from the beginning to the end, at the very, when she starts out and she's mixed up with Amaranth and all that, she's glowing, she's positive, she's super full of light and love, and like it's a tragedy because you can watch this person whose self-destructive impulses are being enabled by this group. You can see her slowly die, and I think in your documentary, I'm sure must have been, excuse me, it must have been kind of mind blowing for you because you're making this documentary. And at the end, you're like, this is serious, folks. This lady's in trouble. And then it's like, fucking, she dies while you're making it. Yeah. You're trying to sound the alarm about this situation. Yeah. So we'll jump ahead a little bit. So she dies. Yeah. And she's supposed to, they're all kind of waiting for her to die because when she dies, they're going to come. The spaceship is going to come. It's very Heaven's Gate. Ooh, let me get a drink here.
No worries.
So it's very Heaven's Gate, very when prophecy fails in a way, because it's like she's the text or whatever, the idea, the mythos that she's built up around her. She's going to die. Spaceship's going to come, take her away, take them away, presumably. None of that happens. And essentially, they're kind of standing around stuck with a fucking dead body.
Yeah. And that's when they took a lot of the videos in the hotel room that they were in, with the EMF meter like up against her feet. They looked after, again, I want to, this could be a controversial opinion, but they didn't necessarily, they got charged with abuse of a corpse,
Right.
which sounds like what it sounds like.
Yeah,
but they didn't
sinister.
actually, they didn't actually abuse the corpse. They I don't want to sound too controversial and defend.
It's like, look, you can't. It's like, look, even if you love and worship this dead body, it still falls under the umbrella of abuse.
Yeah, exactly. So they didn't do anything horrific with her. They just kind of like carted her around, but they cared for her as if she was still alive. So they had they'd still another big part of Love Has Won is they would always keep a diary. The diary for them is like the Bible, right? Mm-hmm. It's the story of God. So in a way, they're all her disciples, or they're her archaeas, and they're her masters and whatever. So they were still writing in this diary that they were, giving her a tincture, putting some water drops in her mouth. I mean, she's dead, but they're still carrying out this very kind of like, it's very bizarre. It's bizarre to me, but it's, sometimes I feel like, and I don't think it was sensationalized in the HBO documentary, because I think it's interesting that you do get a glimpse, especially with them telling their own narrative, you do get to almost see it through their eyes. And I know that it doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but it definitely, I can see how it made sense to them.
Yeah.
Still kind of looking after her. And again, like they didn't want to give her body up.
Right. Exactly.
Because in this kind of spiritual war that they're in, the cabal, the people that don't want us to ascend to 3D, to 5D, the people that want to keep us stuck in a low density, they will take Mother's body and do God knows what to it.
Right.
And that couldn't
at all costs or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. And that shouldn't, that can't be allowed to happen in their eyes. So they go camping with the body, which leads to this kind of like very bizarre, almost Weekend at Bernie's type scenario, which is just, very disturbing. It's kind of like it's like black comedy, right? It's you don't want to laugh at it because it's not funny, but there's these elements within it that you're like, it's so absurd that you're like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
You're going camping with a dead body. You're sleeping next to a dead body. She's dead.
Yeah.
It's just wild. So yeah, she sadly passed away. And they went camping for a while. Brought then Jason and John, father of the multiverse, and I believe Ryan. No, I can't remember where Ryan was. I can't remember the specifics of it anyway. But they go from the campground back to Crestone, Colorado, where this conflicting scenario happens. So they get there in the evening, apparently. This is, again, debatable. But they arrive there in the evening and apparently leave her body in the car overnight. Just like in the back of the car outside the Crestone house. While I don't think Michael is there. So the house is in Michael's name, but he says it in his police interview. He says it's like his house and he didn't really know these people. These people come back and they expect to stay here. And it's like, this is they might not be their house in name, but they have lived there before. Right. They're not strangers.
Like their headquarters or whatever.
Yeah. So they allegedly leave the body overnight in the car and then bring her in the next day, set her up in the bed with the Christmas lights. And again, like it's made out to be this, like they mummified her and put her in Christmas lights. For them, it's like a worship thing. It's like, we need to make Mother comfortable. And she was not mummified. She was just decomposed. See, you're already dealing with a woman that was extremely anorexic and blue at the time of death. When you're talking, like 7 to 10 days afterwards or however long it was, she's, not going to be looking good. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
There was no mummification involved. And obviously when you're decomposing, not to get too graphic about it, but the people fixate on the eyes. Well, the eyes are, I'm not like a human scientist or anything, but your eyes are, kind of like gelatinous and wet.
Yeah,
right?
they're like the first to go.
They're the first things to go. Exactly.
Yeah.
So they go straight away. They didn't cut out her eyes or do anything horrific like that. Yeah. They put her in Christmas lights because that was the theme of the room. If you see Amy's room, her bedroom, it's very childlike. It's very like dolphins and sparklers and toys and trinkets and all of this kind of stuff. And it's kind of building like a fantasy almost for her. Yeah. So for them, that was, an act of kind of looking after her, wrapping her up in the sleeping bag and then putting her in the Christmas lights. Then
the cops come and they find the body, but nobody gets in trouble for any of this, which is kind of remarkable.
Well, so Michael...
eventually, right? They initially, they're going to charge them, and they're like,
Yeah, Michael claims to go to the house, come back to the house. He claims that he was off doing something with a laptop, dropping someone off at the airport, blah, 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 blah. Claims to come back to the house. Now, the person that is sleeping in that house as well, you've got 2 children. I won't name them, but one of them is Miguel's son. Miguel's son that he has with Faith. The child's name is Drake. He's been in that cult since birth. According to Michael on one of the live streams, one of the first things that Drake ever said, he was bought. Okay, try not to do like inside baseball and explain it to people that aren't as brain rotted as me. So Faith and Michael have this baby called Drake. And on one of their live streams, they said that after Drake was born, a couple of days after he was born, they introduced Drake, the baby, to Mother God, and he asked Mother God for a cigarette. Not sure how true that is. Not sure whether a newborn, but it does. But again, that kind of makes me wonder what that house was like for children. But I can only speculate. I mean, from what we've seen, absolutely horrific. So there were 2 children in that house. The other one was a teenager, but very early teens. And that teenager had allegedly been required to sit by Mother God, deceased, and read her stories, which is quite, again, I don't know how true that is. It's just something I've heard. So anyway, Miguel comes back to the house where Amy's body is, and apparently Jason says to him, come and see Mother. And Miguel claims that he was so freaked out, tried to take Drake, but they wouldn't let him take Drake, his baby. So he goes to the cops in Mafat, I believe. I don't think he went to the Creston. I'm trying to remember all this off the top of my head, so apologies if I'm messing anything up. So he goes to the police, and that's where there's the body cam footage. And in that body cam footage, which I think you can watch pretty much all of it on YouTube, I think the whole thing's been uploaded. You can kind of see what I mean about this kind of neuro-linguistic programming way of speaking, and him very much trying to distance himself from any type of involvement. Some have claimed that he knew they were coming. Some have claimed that, he knew that Amy was there, that they didn't leave the body in the car overnight. It's so debatable. You could debate it until the cows come home. The only person that really knows what happened are the people that were there. Exactly. But either way, he was the one that reported it. Even though he still believed in Amy, and I just still think that, again, a lot of people like to say that he was the architect of, the money man, and then he runs off and he does blah, 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 blah. I still think that he did believe, and this wasn't all just about money, but obviously once he shot them in to the police, and he's got access to all of the bank accounts, takes the money and runs, essentially, and leaves them to be arrested. So they're all arrested, again, all caught on body cam. They're not all arrested, sorry, that's me misspeaking. The people that are in Crestone are arrested. Some of the other team members then went off to Vermont and kind of managed to get out of it that way, of having any involvement. But they were arrested under for abuse of a corpse, I think it was like child neglect or something like that. There was charges about children involved with it as well. And there was a whole so I was watching the court cases because you could log in because it was COVID. You could log in and watch it all on WebEx, which was very interesting. And they'd bring in like Jason, and it's like in his cuffs and stuff on this webcam thing. And again, I don't want to get too much into this, but I will just, because I don't know the details, I don't have them to hand right now. But I will say that there have been a lot of concerns about the court system in that specific area in regards to this case and related cases. That there's some kind of there's been police corruption there before, and again, I think I mentioned this in my documentary, my original one on YouTube.
Yes, you do, yeah.
But some of the police corruption that has gone on there, some of it weirdly coincides with Love Has Won's movements. I'm not making any insinuations. I'm just highlighting things of interest. And there are a lot of people that post stuff on Reddit who talk about some of the people involved in the courts in this specific area are corrupt. That's the allegation. So I don't know how much of that played a role. I know that the charges get dropped, or are these guys still facing? They were dropped. The charges got dropped. Yeah. And like, again, I don't. What could you charge them for? You could have charged them with carrying a corpse across state lines. I guess.
Yeah,
like
that kind of thing,
abuse of a corpse. But it ultimately, I mean, nobody was ever going to be charged for murder in this case, and I don't think that Amy was murdered. I don't think that she was.
Right.
There's a bit in the HBO documentary where Jason says something along the lines of "I killed her." He's not talking literally. It's talking about spiritually. He is, and again, so much of that is his role in this weird theology, because he is this Lucifer figure. He's the darkness to her light. So there's so much of that baked in. It's what I was talking about earlier, like this encouragement for him to be this darkness, but he has to control it. Like that's his task, is to finally manage to control that darkness. There's like dark forces inside him.
It's wild, man. It's a wild story. So this money man, he eventually he just takes off with the money, right? That kind of has never really been accounted for. He just has the money.
Yeah, nobody, as far as I know, there have been no signs of him since he left the US. I think he might be in Mexico, because there's some Love Has Won believers down in Mexico. There was again, and this is something.
Do we have any idea how much money like this might have been? Like how much money was in their sort of
I think according to some of them, it was 300,000.
All right. Okay.
So it's not a small amount.
Right.
Definitely not small. And this group as well were global. So they had followers in the UK. They had, some of them were really close to me, actually. I found one of them that was like maybe about half an hour away from me, which was kind of spooky. They had a lot of followers in Australia that would stream. I think South Africa, they had followers as well. And down in Mexico, they had some followers, definitely in Canada. But this wasn't just America centric. And with it being online, and again, like now, they again appear to be actively doing stuff. I don't follow them as closely as I did, and maybe I should. I don't know whether I should for my mental health. But they're definitely still very much active, very much recruiting people still. And a lot of their stuff is somewhat cloaked. So you can find a lot of their content through just regular astrology stuff, and it all kind of looks really nice. And they don't, they got multiple different websites, but most of them don't overtly talk about Amy Carlson.
Right.
So it's kind of hidden under like a glossy new age veneer at the moment, but it's still they're still very much the same beliefs.
Interesting. So did they all kind of disperse into their own worlds in a way? Like
I still think most of them are still friends with each other.
Yeah.
But I don't think I think a few of them live together, but not in this kind of like communal. Because the way that they were living, they would call it like spiritual boot camp. Yeah, they were basically being trained by Amy. Living with her, being with her was like training, spiritual training. Right, and now they're kind of off doing their own thing, but still very much believe.
When you saw the documentary, because I'm trying to imagine this from your perspective in a way, because you made your documentary, and you're like the complete outsider watching this, and you're like, hey, everyone, this crazy shit is happening. So I don't have the name of the HBO documentarian off the top of my head, I'm sure.
Hannah Olsen.
Yeah. So Hannah, she makes the documentary. I think one of the more astounding parts of that documentary is that all these people sat down to talk about the whole experience, which you almost never really see from a cult documentary unless they're people who got out of it. So I guess, first of all, what was that experience like for you as someone who was watching these people, and now you're like, oh, holy shit, it's this guy, it's that guy, it's the person from the video, really and now weird. They're opening up. Yeah.
Really weird. Because through working on it, getting to see these interviews, getting to watch them, and like the whole interview, it's really compelling, and also really important to listen to these people talk, especially for someone like me who's interested in these kind of belief systems, where they come from, and also trying my best. Sometimes I'm not good at it, but trying to at least approach it in a way that isn't extremely judgmental. I do really struggle when we get into the realm of some of their belief systems that I find absolutely repugnant, and I will call them out, and I'm not going to self-censor myself in the just trying to have empathy for people when something is blatantly wrong. But hearing people's stories, where they came from, and hearing their version of events, and also finding out so much more stuff than I ever thought I would know. Right.
That was another question I had for you. What did you, was there anything that you learned? As you say, you learned a lot. So was there anything that you learned in the HBO documentary that you, who is, I love is one kind of expert here, you were on the case, when you were watching the documentary or when, as it was being made, where you're like, oh, holy shit, I never knew that. That was like amazing. Or
quite a bit. I'm not sure how much I can say. just purely because I don't want to put out things that I can't 100% back up, or I'm not 100% sure of, But there are definitely a lot of interesting things. Yeah. And I think at the time, like as I was working on the documentary as well, I was kind of giving myself like a more of a rounded education of like the New Age movement in general. So I was kind of reading a lot of stuff and doing my own research into like where those belief systems come from. So one thing from my side, like working on this documentary in real time, but also educating myself on where all of the origins of so much of what they believed in was really helpful for me, because when you can trace it back, it becomes easy to unpick it, and then you can see exactly where it all comes from.
Yeah. Well, it was very, well, the HBO documentary, that was definitely one of the more interesting just parts of the whole thing, was these people opening up about their experience and unabashedly talking about it. There's with the exception of one guy who's like one of the original father gods, who's like, look, this is, he even said, I think in the documentary, he's like, I got her a few times to admit she wasn't God, and then they kind of pushed me out of the scene. But everybody else is kind of like, they're still on board with it. It's really, that's kind of the wild part, because you almost never see that in these documentaries about cults.
Yeah, and they still are all pretty much believers, and I don't know if that will ever change for them. And again, like that in itself is not the issue. The issue is the more insidious parts of their ideology that that's the thing that I think most people take the issue with. You know, nobody particularly cares if you're going to worship this woman and say that she's God. Like, no, you know, do what you like, really.
Right.
When you start getting into the realm of pushing some of the most repugnant theories and ideas on the face of the planet, that's when it becomes an issue. And for what I can see, they're definitely still doing that.
Yeah, well, the whole story is, in a sense, kind of like this cautionary tale about the internet in a lot of ways, because she kind of got mixed up in it in the internet by way of the internet, and then they recruited. This is all a very, as I said, it's very modern day cautionary tale of going down these rabbit holes online, and once you kind of get into this group, this social group, whether it's online or, you know, for the people who really took it to an extreme and moved out to live with her, this all can be traced back to sort of a byproduct of the internet age in a way, this particular story.
I definitely, I do agree with that, but I also think that that's like, there's another angle to this that isn't explored enough, and there were two angles. Number one, why do people get to that point? And again, it's kind of like what I was saying earlier, right? People have a distrust of government for very good reasons, distrust of institutions for very good reasons. None of this is ever addressed. Economic issues are never addressed, which then leads people to be easily exploited by bad actors. And the second bit is, I genuinely do think that the New Age movement has to do something. I'm not sure what, but at least acknowledgement of the far right. And I'm not using this loosely, trying to, you know, throw the word fascist about. But if you go back to the origins of the New Age movement, the things that are written into these texts that then become the basis of this belief system are inherently fascist. Like that, there's this. People like to, again, this is the idea of the New Age to alt-right pipeline, which is I absolutely hate it when people use that term because there is no pipeline. It's there from the beginning. Like, you're not being funneled anywhere. As soon as you get into this stuff, and again, I got an interest in this stuff. I got crystals. I'm interested in, you know, like tarot, all of that kind of stuff, astrology. But when you start getting into it any more than just like a cursory interest, right, very surface level interest, when you start actually reading the text, you start coming up with some very unsavory characters. And again, it's like the same with the conspiracy world, right? It's like there's just a kind of tendency to not acknowledge a lot of stuff. And it, you know, it's a very it's very complicated. It's very multifaceted, but I think like it's so easy for people to go like, oh my God, my friend was just into yoga and tarot and crystals, and now she's a hardcore fascist who, you know, is saying some of the most horrific things. And it's like, well, you know, that's not a pipeline. You've just got further into a pre-existing belief system. Like, it's all there for you to see on the surface, really. I know what I'm trying to say. I feel like I'm kind of making sense.
Yeah, no, you're making total sense. Yeah, no, there's a very dark underbelly to the New Age beliefs that
absolutely
that get glossed over by a lot of this love and light and magic and that kind of thing. And
it's love and light it's love and light for certain people, and then other people are the bringers of darkness. You know, like these are the things that are written into like, you know, seminal texts in the New Age world. People like Alice Bailey, Elena Blavatsky, Rudolf Steiner, to an extent, all of these people. You know, you start reading and you start going like, oh, fucking hell, hang on a minute. Like, this is all getting a little bit sus.
Yeah, yeah. Could this have been stopped at any time? This Amy Carlson story, like, I mean, like you said, and as you said, people comment on your YouTube like, oh, hey, how come? Like, obviously the family was trying. They got the whole they got Dr. Phil involved at one point. So it's not like
and that's another thing that they get a lot of. That's another thing they get a lot of flack for, and I think it's a lot of people have this idea of like, why would you turn to Dr. Phil? But I feel like that's another like perfect representation of the systems that kind of lead to this in the first place, right? When your only option is Dr. Phil.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like the underlying issue here, you know, like people don't have access. And I think Hannah said this a lot in her interviews, is a lot of people don't have access to healthcare. So you're going to go to a Dr. Phil type character because he's going to try and offer X, Y, and Z, even though he doesn't really offer it. Do I think it could have been stopped? I don't think so, because, you know, I don't think it could have been because there's not enough education on high control groups, what a high control group looks like, and how you deal with it. Because a lot of people will say it's freedom of to be able to practice your religion.
Right, exactly.
You know, and obviously, you know, freedom is important, but also how do you then deal with these control groups that are destroying people's lives? I don't know the answer to that. I think that there has to be. There's got to be one. I'm just not sure what it is. I think like the thing for me, again, when I think about it now, is the things that they were streaming on YouTube. And, you know, like on YouTube, you can get demonetized for anything. They'll take you off. So, you know, how were they allowed to carry on there? You know, like, you know, they take off people like Alex Jones, and you can debate about whether or not he should have been deplatformed, you know, till the cows come home. But they left Love Has Won, you know, maybe because they weren't very well known. I just, But they were saying things that were a million times worse than anything I've ever had come out of Alex Jones's mouth. They were repeating a lot of things that came out of his mouth, but, you know, like it's that kind of thing. It's like, and again, and that opens up the whole debate of, if you took them off YouTube and deplatformed them, are you then solidifying their beliefs that the deep state cabal are out to stop the message? You know, that it's almost like you'd reinforce it at that point. So it just becomes
and there's no like supervision at all. So if they go underground, then you're left with like God knows what they're doing. So it's a weird double-edged sword where it's like, it's you know, it's great that they're broadcasting this so we know what they're up to, but they really shouldn't be doing this shit. Are there I'm almost afraid of the answer to this question. I actually sent you a link the other day about some decapitating. Is this Love Has Won thing? Is this like the tip of the fucking iceberg here? Are we talking? Are there more of these groups? And
absolutely, they're everywhere. They're literally everywhere. You only have to dig around a little bit to try and find one of them. You know, you've got a lot of people talk about the Twin Flames universe. That's quite a you know, well publicized one at the moment. There's that the one that we were talking about, Universal Spirit University, whatever. The guy, 6 people have gone missing connected to his cult. Again, he's an online cult leader. There are so many. It is, you know, it can be really scary. But again, like there's little like mini cults of, you know, just got to get on like UFO Twitter to see some cult stuff in action.
That's an understatement. Yeah.
You know, it's all there. You don't have to search very far to find it.
Yeah. Well, like I said earlier, it does kind of, I mean, there have been cults forever in a sense, but it's like the internet makes this worse. It really allows people to kind of go down the rabbit hole. And you know, we talked a little bit about QAnon. I'm sure there's so many heartbreaking stories. I think even a documentary about it, but like the people who go into QAnon and their families just, you know, they're left with no option, you know, they have no means of pulling them out of it. And it's really, I don't know. It's just symptomatic of a troubled society, I suppose.
It really is, but it's also like it especially stuff like QAnon. It's like it's scary because you just wonder how when you've got people who believe to that extent that they're basically your foot soldiers, right? So stuff like that is very convenient for like bad actors, be them intelligence agencies, be them, you know, any sort of like underground groups, whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Having all of those people that have essentially been messed with, for want of a better term that I can think of, by like effectively indoctrinated by like an ARG type scenario, you know, like these people are like living in a different world, and it's
right. Yeah, the
but it
terrifying
works.
thing. Yeah,
It works because they take facets of reality, right? And that's how all of this works. It gets people in because people, and it's kind of what I was saying earlier, like people can see that there's problems, but if you've got no way of like if you've got no way of like understanding where the problems come from, you're going to be very susceptible, or like what's causing the problem, you're going to be very susceptible to like all of these bits. So it's going to be, you know, instead of you know, greedy corporations or, you know, the symptoms of capitalism, it's going to be satanic baby in cabal. You know, that's where people gravitate to. So it's like, I don't know, I think it's very important to have like a framework through which to kind of view things, and also like to talk more about stuff like this, because there seems sometimes to be a tendency to like demean people that have like people that fall into like Q beliefs and stuff. And I think that there's not enough emphasis on, well, when all of your trust has been completely wiped out of every institution, people don't have enough money to live, people can't get good health care, people can't get good food, they see endless war, they see all of these things, and they're consistently lied to. Of course you're going to gravitate towards beliefs like conspiracy theories and belief systems. Again, like when I say conspiracy theories, like a lot of conspiracy theories are true, but what I mean is like the more kind of fantastical conspiracy theories that are like
fantastical. It's there's plenty of conspiracies. It's well, it's a strange world we're living in now. Did you, when you put out, now you kind of came along, you put out the documentary right when things had gone to shit for Love Is One, so did you ever receive any, because like part of the thing is like I'd be afraid to mess with these people or expose them. Like, did you ever receive any pushback? Was anyone like, hey, you know, hey, Emily Louise, shut up, stop talking about us, don't go there?
Not really.
That's
they get a lot. They got a lot of trolls because they did all their live streams constantly. So you know they got a lot of like. And I think by the time that came out, they'd hit the mainstream news. So I was like a drop in the water compared to like,
they were dealing with a dead body and shit. They didn't have time to worry about like, your video.
Can't be dealing with this. Yeah.
But it sounds like, as you were putting this together, your documentary, this predates the HBO one, obviously. There was sort of this underground group, because you kept saying, like, in your documentary, like, from sources have told me, sources say this. So it sounds like there was this kind of simmering underground movement of, like, hey, this Love Is One thing. You said there were a couple of groups and shit online. Yeah. It's like people were becoming aware that, like, something is wrong here with this group.
Yeah, and driven mostly by people that were connected to people in the cult, so like family members. So I remember like my first crash course into this was like a 4-hour Zoom call with some people who had family members inside Love Is One cult. And that is where I got a lot of like initial information from like interviewing them and talking to them. And yeah, a lot of kind of people that were in their private chats and stuff that were getting information and things like that. Yeah. So that was my first kind of like foray into like I didn't even really know what I was doing. I just knew that I wanted to make something about it. And then I realized that you can actually interview people. Like I didn't realize that before. I was like, oh, you can actually like talk to people and get them to talk to you and ask them questions and then find out more things. It's like I was teaching myself how to do this process of like putting things together, because I was very, very like new to it. But now I feel like a bit of a, not a pro, but like I've done it a bit longer now. So I kind of feel a bit more confident. But when I was putting that together, I had no clue what I was doing.
Now, we established that, like, as this is all was going on, so Amy's doing all this, she's drinking all the time, she's doing drugs, of various types or whatever. We're not going to get into that. But were the people who were living there also just kind of partying it up too? Or were they like on the straight and narrow and only she could be the
They're definitely not on the definitely not on the straight and narrow. I don't know the extent. I know they did group mushroom trips together.
Okay, all right. They're
probably smoking weed, but I'm not sure to the extent.
Yeah,
I don't think they were getting fucked up all the time, but there was definitely, it was much more relaxed than any other setting.
Yeah. Okay, that's kind of that's all. Because you just kind of wonder sometimes, like, why do these people? I think there's also with cults, it's also sort of like the sunk cost situation where it's like once you're too deep into this, you're like, look, I've given up everything. I'm on this ride till the spaceship comes.
Exactly.
Like, what the fuck? I can't go back to working at Lady Foot Locker, man. This is.
I think it's like Hope says in the documentaries, is like, what am I going to do? Go back to fucking Boston? Like, I can't go back to this.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. Did you, when Hannah was interviewing these people, did you have any input, like, as far as, like, oh, you should ask them about this, or I'd like to know more about that, or anything like that?
Yeah, I definitely gave, like, some guidance. But Hannah's way of interviewing is, like, it's a very good way of interviewing because she gets people to kind of talk, like, just talk, right? So it was less, I think the reason why you get those good sound bites and this information coming from the people themselves is because she let them talk. Yeah. It was less sense. Kind of like interrogating.
Right.
More kind of, letting these people tell their stories versus like any sort of rigorous questioning. Although there was definitely questioning. I don't know what I'm making it sound, but there was definitely
I know
questioning.
Exactly what you mean. Yeah.
But more kind of like giving people space to actually be able to tell their stories as well.
Well,
which
you
I
mentioned
think is important.
Hope was like probably one of my favorites in the doc. She's so combative.
Oh. Yeah, and all the live streams are like that, and it's mile a minute talking.
Yeah.
So when you're trying to transcribe it, listen to it, and transcribe bits of it, and pick out bits, it's like I've never heard somebody talk so fast.
Yeah. She just some of those clips that like they're in your documentary, they're in the HBO. She's like she's just like fucking mean. I'm like, I can't see myself during this call. It's like, look at motherfucker, we're going to change the world. It's like, all right, this is...
Yeah, it is very much like that. Again, and I think she got that a lot from Amy. I think Amy encouraged that out of her because she was very meek at the beginning. You look at her beginning live streams in 2018, super meek, like wouldn't say boo to a goose kind of meekness. And then like as it goes on, she kind of becomes like, as she says, best friends with Amy. She like gets the confidence, and to really go after people and terrorize people. I mean, she was horrific to some people.
She's a character.
Really.
So you say they got a lot of so as they were doing these sort of chats and shit,
they get trolls all the time. I trolled them. Yeah, I trolled them.
Yeah, you mentioned that in your documentary.
It was a prank. I was trying to be funny. But yeah, you could call them up. You could leave comments on their live chat. It would always be most of the chat would be believers and people taking the piss.
Well, that's that when you said that struck me as interesting because it is cult like. I have an interest in the flat Earth community, so to me it struck me very much when you said that. It reminded me of the flat earthers in a way because they're constantly like trolled, and I think that almost emboldens.
Absolutely,
they develop a persecution complex, rightfully so, and then that kind of like emboldens them and kind of gets them back into
Absolutely.
They kind of isolate themselves or
reinforces it. We're being attacked. Everybody is against us. Mother God is being attacked. The people aren't waking up. The people aren't getting it. And absolutely, I agree with that. Definitely reinforces them. Yeah,
it's a fascinating phenomenon because I went to like a flat Earth convention to get an idea of who these folks were. Yeah, and it's kind of I can kind of see your perspective. Like we share in a lot of ways of these different groups because it's like people ask what they're like. I'm like they are good people. They're just really misguided people.
Yes.
Like they're just misguided people. But for a brief couple of days, I was a flat earther, not like in belief, but I was in the community and I understood it. Cause like I'm on Twitter. I just post a picture like, here's the venue for Flat Earth Convention. Not just completely arbitrary language, not pro, con, whatever. Here's a picture of the thing. And my Twitter's like bombarded with people who are like saying the nastiest shit to me. And I'm like, oh, okay. I get what it's like to be these people now. You just get shit on and attacked like nonstop. And I can see how if you're part of that group, that warps your mind in a way.
Absolutely. And there's that's the thing about like criticism, right? There's a way to kind of go about, I mean, some people rightfully just deserve to be called out. I think, like you said, with a lot of these people, it does lead to this reinforcement of belief. Everybody's against us. We can only depend on each other. And it becomes more insular in that way. But again, like, I don't know how to combat that because there's no, you know, what people are, when they're spreading these kind of belief systems that they have, people are well within their rights to criticize them and to call them out and to troll them and, you know, do whatever. So it's just the whole thing, how to approach it confuses me. I just have no idea.
Yeah, no, it's worrisome in a lot of ways. It's funny. I don't know necessarily with the Flat Earth people, but with the QAnon, with the Love Is One, with UFO Twitter, it's they're gonna love that comparison. They all have the end. They all have the moment. They all have that big moment. They're all waiting for the fucking moment, and it's like
they're waiting for is it disclosure? Is it ascension?
Is it the
it's all facets of the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the event, right? It's that big event that you're waiting for, and you're all together, and you know the truth, and blah 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 blah. It just goes on and on and on, and ultimately, like, people aren't interested in the truth, because when you tell people the truth, people don't want to hear it. It ruins the fantasy of it. And again, this is what I talk about when I talk about addressing those symptoms that lead people to that point. It's like it's very similar to like people that believe that they're in the secret space program, right? And they're super soldiers.
Yeah.
It's like you can understand that people that live extremely dissatisfying lives, you know, you got to go to your job that you hate and pay all of your bills, and you don't have enough money for food, and your food's super expensive and everything's kind of shitty. And then you get to live a second life where you're a super soldier, right? So you can see how that kind of stuff becomes like really appealing to people. And without, and again, it all kind of comes down to addressing like those root causes of it. That is what I think. And but again, people don't want to talk about it because they say you're bringing politics into it, or you're too much of it. Like the comments that I get on YouTube of get accused of being a what is it? People call me mind slave to Marxism, or whatever I get called in the comments of my own YouTube videos. But I'm like, this kind of stuff is important. You know, if you don't address it, you're gonna people are increasingly having issues in their lives that aren't addressed. And, you know, I think that ultimately leads people to these kind of weird subcultures and groups and stuff, and gurus and cult leaders and all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying that the world would be, you know, rainbows and unicorns and you're never going to have any cults, or you're not going to have anything if, you know, we address all the economic issues in everybody's lives. Of course, people are always going to have strange beliefs, of course. But I think a lot of these people get into a lot of this stuff for those kind of reasons. That's just my take on it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
And they get exploited by these people because of that. Like people trying to sell people prosperity. Follow me and you'll get so much money. Follow me, I've got a psychic reading. I know where X, Y, and Z treasure is, and you can have some of it if you just follow me. Like, it's that kind of stuff. It's like you're selling people pipe dreams. Yeah,
it's troubling. It's this whole story is wild. You know, it's well, I can only hope at least that with the HBO documentary, like it's certainly opened up a lot of people's eyes to. Yeah, I think there's a certain shock in a way, as I said, like at the very beginning of this conversation, that like this was happening like a couple of years ago. Yeah. Like this wasn't something from the 70s.
Yeah,
this was
exactly.
a thing that's happening around
now.
You now.
Yeah, exactly. And there are God knows how many there are that are operating and going. It's like weird to think about that you just don't know about. There's tons. There's so many.
Yeah, and then something crazy happens and you find out, you're like, oh wait, there's a cult like in two towns over, and like
exactly.
they murdered a guy. Like this is...
yeah, it's really intense.
But it's there's no, as you said, it treads up to a weird like beliefs that like freedom of religion versus someone's well-being.
Yeah,
I don't know. You know, it's like you're saying. It's like there needs to be some kind of change. Like you almost wonder if there needs to be some kind of like legal avenue for people whose family get mixed up with this kind of thing. And, you know, you make the point in your documentary, there's a guy that comes out to join them. They don't dig his energy. So they push him out like naked out into the fucking desert, and the cops pick him up and he's naked. He's got cactus, whatever they're called, the little pins or whatever, sticking into him all over. And the cops are like, yeah, he's fine. We'll just let him go.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, he was in the hospital. They just let him go. Like, oh, we can't hold him. Well, why can't you hold him? He's clearly not in his right mind. There needs to be definitely more education around coercive control and high control groups, 100%. That, I think, is probably one of the most important things. But again, like, some of these groups operate in areas where there is, I'm not saying there's areas that don't have it, but areas where there is a lot of reports of like police corruption. So again, you're dealing with that whole thing, and that it opens up, you know, conversations about groups like Scientology, for example, long been accused of colluding with law enforcement. So when you've even got, you know, religious cults that embed themselves in institutions, then what do you do, right? You've got a cult that gets as big as Scientology, and they're seemingly untouchable because you can't even get missing persons reports looked into properly. You know, like then what do you do when you've used every avenue available? I guess you just, at that point, you just have to sit back. And I know this sounds horrific, but this is what the system is. You have to sit back and wait for somebody's body to show up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And all you can do is kind of keep sounding the alarm about what's going on. I mean, that's the only option you have.
Yeah, it's disturbing.
This is sort of a question that everybody gets all the time who are in this field. So have you given any thought to like writing a book about all this, the love is one thing, or are you're kind of focusing on the video aspect of stuff?
I've considered writing a book, but not specifically on Love Has Won. There's probably enough there. But I'm a bit more interested in like the origins of it, right? Okay. Because they're a bit of like a dime a dozen, these kind of religious groups. I know this one's like very, what am I trying to say? This one's very, I'm trying to find a word, and it's like not unique, coming to me.
In a sense,
yes, like very specifically wacky. That's what I'm trying to say. Right. This one's very kind of like off the wall. I was most interested in, where some of these beliefs come from. I've had like a fellow researcher, friend of mine, who reached out to me last year, tell me that I should write a book on the I Am movement, which again is where so much of this stuff comes from. So maybe one day.
There you go. But of course, you've got Weird Reads with Emily Louise. This is the YouTube channel.
It is.
And I'm scrolling through now as I'm talking to you, and you've got all kinds of interesting. And these are like full on documentaries.
Yes.
You know, on all kinds of stuff. The Highgate Vampire, who was Helena Blavatsky. Edgar, like I'm looking at like an hour and 15-minute documentary on Edgar Casey here. This is tremendous stuff. So
yeah, the one that I'm probably most proud of is the Alternative 3 documentary, which is about the secret space program. Yeah, that one's like nearly 3 hours, which is like It's all about kind of like how Alternative 3, the hoax documentary from the 1970s, and then the subsequent book kind of led to the creation of a lot of stuff like the Montauk Project, but also a lot of the secret space program stuff that we see today. It's kind of this idea of people going to Mars for 20 years and then being age regressed and then coming home and, you know, doing all of that stuff. So I got some good interviews for that one. Interviewed the guy that wrote the original book, and then also Randy Kramer, who is one of the secret space program people, apparently. So yeah, a lot of stuff at the moment is very like focused on like the UFO world. That's kind of my main research focus at the moment.
Yeah, well, UFO world's rich with interesting conspiracies and sort of apocryphal tales. That's probably the best way
absolutely.
to put it.
Absolutely.
And it's always interesting to see how Adam's books, the most recent one that Adam did, Spooks, and that one, the Saucer one, that's a fantastic book. Yeah, that really kind of traces how these things just popped up in the ether. Yeah. And that like one guy takes it and he adds a little bit to it, and someone else kind of puts a little bit more to it. And it's like, oh, I heard the same thing when I was working as a, and it's like, but what I heard had a little different thing. Now, the aliens had 7 fingers instead of 4. It gets more and more complex, and it's a fascinating world.
It very much is. It's a very confusing world with a lot of very strange people and a lot of like nefarious agencies meddling with things behind the scenes, which makes things even more confusing, but also interesting when you're researching and writing about this kind of stuff.
Now, do you have anything in mind for what are you working on now? You probably kind of are tired of talking about Love Is One, so you're ready to.
I'm working on. Else. I'm building up to a series of videos that I'm doing at the moment. Started with a video on Snippy the horse, and I've also got another one on the origins of the Dulcie Base conspiracy, but it's basically leading up to covering Majestic 12. Which is going to be great. So I've done quite a lot of interviews with people already. People like Rick Doty, which is interesting. Interviews with some researchers, like great people that I've spoken to, trying to organize some other ones as well, like that kind of era of ufology, the 80s ufology, because you can see so much of that in where we are now.
Right.
A lot of people want to only go back to like 2017, when this new wave of UFO stuff started, and it's like, no, you need to go back, go way back. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm working on at the moment. But it's kind of slow going, trying to put all the pieces together and trying to get all the right things together. Because I know it's like a hotly contested thing, Majestic 12, and it's a whole big story, and I just want to kind of do it justice, because I was been looking for like a video on it from my kind of perspective, that it is all kind of intelligence disinformation. That's how it began, and that it isn't true. That's my take on it. And there isn't really like a video format documentary that covers that, like Adam's book, which you said, Spooks and Kooks, covers it. Mirage Men by Mark Pilkington covers it. A couple of others cover it as well, but though it's all in kind of book format, so it's not in. Well, Mirage Men, the documentary as well, covers it, but doesn't specifically like go into detail on what Majestic 12 is, and then kind of track it into the future stuff and the things that are happening now. So that's kind of what I want to do.
Yeah, well, Majestic 12 is interesting, as with the exception of, God rest his soul, Stan Friedman, who was still championing Majestic 12 up until he died. Yeah. Everybody I knew in ufology was like, it's bullshit. So it's like kind of one of those weird things where it's like, if you were in the scene, you knew, but it was bullshit. But people kind of on the peripheral, or I don't like to use the term fans, but like the fans or the enthusiasts or whatever, they bought into it. But like the people on the inside, or the people who were the ufologists, they were all just like, it's like, nah, it's almost certainly bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
and
it's also
Stan, but it's probably bullshit.
Yeah, I've read his book on it, which is interesting book. But it's interesting, like how those stories now are then kind of like being repackaged, right? So like, I even saw a bit about Majestic 12 was included in that Netflix documentary called Encounters. Right. You know, like it's all that kind of stuff, and it makes its way into all of these new things that are hitting new audiences who don't know that it's bullshit.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly.
You know, how are you going to explain, like, you know, tons of years of UFO bullshit and disinformation, purposefully seeded disinformation to people? And I think like that's the most perfect example of it, because it's all tied in with like Paul Benowitz and all of that stuff. So it's like, that's kind of like the perfect example of how intelligence agencies obfuscate, is that the word? This subject, yeah.
Well, yeah, what's interesting too, it reminds me, I hate to keep calling back to the flat earthers, but it does remind me that whole sort of idea in a way where it's like, when I was down there, before I went to meet them, I like did a whole deep dive into the history of the flat earth, and it goes back to like the 1860s, and it ebbs and flows and popularity. And it was like, so I'm like talking to them, and I'm like, well, what do you think about like this person or that person from this era or that era? They didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't concern myself with all that stuff, man. I'm only interested in modern day flat earth. And it's like, bro, like you're
exactly. You're only getting like half the story.
Right. Yeah. It's like, if you don't know the history of all this, you're kind of being, you know, you'll realize immediately you're being taken for a ride, because it's been going on for 150 years.
And I know it doesn't matter to some people, and I know some people are not going to listen no matter what you tell them. I feel like it's just important just for like maybe historical record, or, you know, for myself also, just because I find all the topics so interesting and all the characters that are involved. And especially in like Majestic 12, you've got so many different characters, so many different like weirdness, factional infighting, gossip, you know, people hurling shit at each other. It's just is a very wild time and very weird story.
It was an exciting period. I didn't live through it, but I've read all about it, and it was like, wow, that must have been pretty awesome. So you're working on a Majestic 12 project.
Yes.
That's good. And probably like in another 10 years, you'll look back and do one on this era, right? So.
Yeah, maybe at some point. I feel like there's some people that kind of cover it, you know, the things that are happening like right now quite well. So I haven't really felt the need to like dip into the David Grush. But like I'll talk about it on like podcasts and stuff. I'll talk about it, you know, to friends that are also involved. And I'll talk about it on Twitter until the cows come home. But I've got no interest in doing like a David Grush documentary or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, I was just talking about this with Michael Hughes about conspiracy theories, where it's like, it's so contemporaneous now.
Yeah.
Like, I prefer kind of like what you're talking about with MJ12. At least with the Love is One thing, it's kind of over. You can look at it now and kind of understand it. Like, when you're in the moment, it's really hard to sort of understand, to get your arms around what exactly is happening.
Yeah, exactly.
In real time.
Yeah. Whereas these more historical ones, and I also think they're important because, again, they inform the present, right?
Exactly.
All of the things that were kind of coming out in the MJ12 era, you know, have informed what is going on now.
Right. I think that's probably it. I've taken up a bunch of your time, and we've talked.
Oh, you're welcome.
I really appreciate it. I'm glad we got the chance to do this. As I said,
same.
I was, and really, hats off to you. Like I said, I didn't discover until today that you had done the documentary. Then HBO was like, "Hey, we're going to do it."
Yeah,
it's like, oh shit, she'd already really told the story of Love Is One. So for the people who are out there who are like, "All right, I don't have HBO," some people don't, you know. Yeah. So if you don't have the HBO, go on to Weird Reads with Emily Louise. You can find that on YouTube. Weird Reads with Emily Louise. That's the app thing, and then we'll just Google it. And she has the Love Has One documentary that she made prior to the HBO one. That'll bring you all up to speed on the entire story. And then if you're really
you're hankering for more.
If you're hankering for more, then you get on the HBO one. You can hear from the people who were fucking mixed up in it.
Yeah,
and that's even more enlightening. Have you ever talked to some of those people that are in the... Okay, yeah.
No, I haven't. No. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think that they would be interested in talking to me. I'd talk to them. I don't think they would be interested in talking to me.
Well, it's really interesting because I read an interview with Hannah today, and there was actually two. The one thing she said was, like, she asked the guy, like, how bad the body must have smelled, like, when they were driving, and he's like, the smell of God permeated the car. And it's like, oh, dude, that's not as enticing as you may think it sounds, buddy.
Yeah, quite horrifying.
But she said also that because I was interested in sort of what the reaction was, and somebody asked her, and she said the people who were in the documentary, who were in the call, who were like, thank you for telling our story. So it was like, you'd think they'd be kind of annoyed or like irritated, but they're just kind of like, this is my experience, and they always thought regrets.
That she was going to have they always thought that she was going to have a documentary. That was the whole thing that they would say constantly on their live streams. They thought it was going to be a Netflix documentary. They said one day Mom will have a show on Netflix. They didn't predict HBO.
Wow. Well, there you go. So, and your other websites, EmilyLouiseChurch.com. Folks, keep it, follow Emily Louise. Keep an eye on her if you haven't already. She's putting out great work. I give a feeling, I'm going to be digging into this YouTube channel, and we're going to get you back on the show to talk about whatever your next project is, and probably to dig into some of these back catalog projects, because you got a lot of stuff on there that I'm interested in.
More than willing to come back. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on the show. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, folks, if you want some cool documentaries from someone who knows what they're talking about, is put the work in and is serious about this stuff, check it out, because I was blown away by her Love Is One thing. Having seen the HBO one, then I watched that, and I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. This is like,
thank you. Appreciate
I want to see what you dig into with this other stuff. So yeah, check it out. And thank you again for coming on the show.
Thank you.